Welcome, everyone. Welcome to a new series that I am launching. And this series is a very special series called Expert Interviews with Ken. This is a series where I basically interview other people who are experts in their own fields, whatever their profession is, and we get a chance to hear their story and what it is they're doing for people. So, with that, let's dive into today's guest on Expert Interviews with Ken. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to just another episode with Expert Interviews with Ken. And for today's episode, I have a very special guest today. This will be her second interview with me. She actually was featured and interviewed on Total Truth Show on our episode, The Truth About Being Grateful. And we're actually going to ride with that title today as well for this episode, The Truth About Being Grateful. So, Terri Brinston is an accomplished professional who overcame a learning disability to become a registered nurse, teacher, international motivational speaker, life coach, consultant, and author. With a Master of Arts in Education, Administration, and Community Leadership, and a Bachelor's of Science in Nursing, Terri has nearly 2 decades of experience working with schools, parents, and students. Through her expertise and passion, she empowers schools and individuals to achieve their goals and thrive in life. Terri, I've got to say, you've got a long list of credentials and all of that, and education and just experience through that. And what I want you to do today is I want you to unpack all of it. Let's dive deep into the story. Let's dive deep into what started you on that journey, why, how, and all the things. So I'm gonna turn it right over to you so you can just hop in there and get started, my friend.
Well, thank you so much, Ken, for having me. I'm so excited. I think we do well together. I love talking with you, and I think we just have so many things in common, I think. And so thank you for having me. Looking forward to this conversation. I have a lot going on. I think my bio sounds a little bit more confusing than I feel my life is, right? I have my own business. I'm a teacher, I'm a nurse. But I think that I always say that I truly believe that God orchestrated
Mm.
everything in my life to bring me to this point.
Amen.
Uh, every door that was open, every door that was closed, it really was a just a mixture of things that he allowed to happen to really bring out my gifts, because I didn't really think that I had gifts, but he has nurtured me through relationships, through just woke up my desires. And so anyway, starting off as a special ed student, I always like to tell people that because it was really my foundation, believing that I was lost or dumb and stupid and ugly.
Hmm.
And that's where I started. I had a very, very low self-esteem about myself. And I always say that that was my secret. I didn't want anybody to know that that's how I felt about myself, but that was definitely in my heart, and that was my secret. And so that was my beginning. And I always like to start there um, because it was the start for me. And I call myself a transition expert,
Hmm.
and I because I help people to glance back so that they can move forward. And so with my story, I was able to really glance back, and I often do. I glance back because that's what repels me forward, because I recognize that, man, that's where I was. That was my path. I'm no longer there. And so really building off the title of this episode, just being grateful that I'm no longer there. I passed through that part of my life to get where I am. So very, very grateful to be able to share my story with you and your guest today.
Yeah, definitely. It's great having you. And I mean, I remember from the True Show, your story is so inspiring. It's powerful, and it just it brings so much empowerment is the word I want to use. Yeah. So go ahead, jump in.
So, tell my story. Okay.
Yep, yep, yep. Jump in.
Okay, well,
That's what we're here
uh,
for. Let's go.
well, awesome. So, I mentioned that I was a special ed student and emphasis on was. When I graduated from high school, back then they would prepare you, meaning the educational institution would prepare you if you had a learning disability or a struggle learner, they would enroll you in a vocational education.
Mm,
And so it's so full circle because I'm a vocational teacher now. But back then, I was enrolled in cosmetology. And so they put me through a trade program so that I could take care of myself because, they felt I had a learning disability. So they had to kind of get me employable. And so
mm,
I went through cosmetology. So I thought that, I would be doing hair. And I really didn't like doing hair, but that's what they put me in. And I was like, okay, I'll be able to take care of myself. And so when had graduated from high school, my father got ill. My father had a colon cancer. And with that, he went down really, really quick, and he was placed on hospice. And he was at home with my mother and myself, and I stayed with my mother back then. I was just graduating from high school, and my little brother. It's six of us, but we were the only ones home. And so I had an opportunity to really support my mom as she was taking care of my father. And one day, as I was caring for my dad, he said, "You should be a nurse." And I looked at him and I go, clearly, he was on a lot of medications and, he was struggling a little bit. And I was like, he's Dad, this is Terry, and to myself, I'm thinking, the dumb one. There's no way you're talking about me. I'm thinking that he was talking about my sister. And he says, I know who I'm talking to. You should be a nurse. And I think that it was that him saying that, and I respect my dad so much, and of course, adored him and loved him. But he was in the military and he was a drill sergeant, when he was younger, but he had that type of presence for me, a presence of authority and highly respected him. And so when he said that to me, it just resonated with me because I'm like, if my dad thought I could be a nurse, then truly I can be a nurse. And so I really embraced that and started to explore that as a possibility. And the only nurse that I knew, in my community was there was a nurse who lived behind us. Our houses kind of butt up against each other in the back. And she was a nurse, and I knew she was a nurse because she wore white. She had white stockings on, and she had a white little dress on or her little hat. That's when I used to wear white all the time. And she would speak to my mom, and they would talk. But I always looked at her as, oh man, she's beautiful. And just she carried herself with such respect and authority. And I used to say, so as soon as he said you should be a nurse, that's the person I thought about. I didn't really think about nursing as, caring for people. It was like for some in my little mind, I'm like, respect, authority, beautiful. You know what I'm saying? And those were
mm.
things that just opposite of who I was at that point in my life. And so that was the very first time. And I went on um, this journey, and it started with that dream or that possibility of my dad saying you can do this, and I believed him. And I started recognizing that I was so far from that beautiful, confident person. I literally started to embrace those characteristics before I even thought about the career, right? So I started saying, okay, if I'm going to be a nurse, I need to, walk with authority. I need to speak to people and I need to have my head up. And that's where it started with me. I need to ask for help. I need to get out of this bondage of having a secret of being stupid and feeling that I'm ugly. And I started really asking for help, being more outgoing and volunteering to speak in church and just being more aggressive. I was doing hair at that point and started to go to community college and taking different classes. And so just really started to make those changes, getting further and further away from that shy person that I was, and started to really embrace this new way of being, of me being this nurse, at least the characteristics of a nurse. Started going to school, taking English classes and math and, doing horrible. I didn't tell anybody in college that I was a special ed student, so I didn't access any of those services. Going just hadn't feeling like I needed to do it all, by myself. And that's what I did. And eventually, I was able to get accepted to a one of our uh, one of our universities is like really known for nursing, which is Madonna University. So I graduated from one of the top nursing programs in the state of Michigan and went on to be a nurse. And so just been, trailing and God has been opening doors ever since. So that was my beginning.
That's such an amazing beginning. And, it's interesting. I kind of resonate with some of the stuff that you went through in the early years of school. So speaking like junior high, high school and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, I my journey through that industry, if you will, was not a fun one. I
Mhm.
legitimately, as a kid, and I say legitimate because nowadays people throw this term around like it's candy and it's all over the place. But I was a legitimate case of ADHD. And it was at an age when teachers didn't know how to handle it. They did not know how to deal with ADHD kids. And so I often got shuffled around. I often got shuffled into handicap classes, mentally retarded classes, and different things like that. I had one teacher attack me with a broom once. Um, oh yeah. So junior high and high school, anything middle school, like they just didn't know what to deal with me. When I finally graduated high school, mind you, the only reason why I graduated high school is because I had enough credits. I had never passed pre algebra. I passed pre-algebra, but I never passed algebra. I never took a foreign language. I never took a science class. All the main requirements now today, right? What's the other one? Foreign language. Never took a foreign language. Um, but I passed. I graduated high school, got my diploma because I had enough credits. Also, towards the end of the year, I also took a few extra credit classes, and they let me slide with that. So, but I was grateful. I was grateful to get out of there. I felt like once I got out of high school, it's like I felt like a whole bunch of chains dropped off of me. So, yeah, I kind of identify a little bit with your story there with what you went through as a kid there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. Schools did struggle, and they struggle now too
Hmm.
with dealing with children with that diagnosis. Absolutely. Yeah. Um, it's so weird because I felt the same way. I couldn't wait to get out of high school. Because I felt like, okay, I can stop hiding. I can stop, you know,
Hmm.
feeling like I had to always be ready to defend myself. Yeah, so absolutely. But to be able to have that feeling about school and then graduate and become a teacher, it's kind of, odd. But I really believe that my training ground, although I have my master's in education, my training really came from me, being in school, and the struggles that I went through, because I definitely see myself a lot in the students that I serve.
Mm.
Um, I see them struggling, and I'm very empathetic to that struggle because it's familiar to me. And so I do teach a well, I guess I could tell you why that I get into teaching, because I'm a registered nurse and I'm also a teacher. But I was working as a pediatric nurse, working 12-hour shifts. And during this time, I had gotten married and I have two boys, and working 12 hours. And it was like I was a ship in the night, with my sons and my husband. And I didn't really get a chance to see them much. And I missed them. And I would go to work, and this is my dream job. I love nursing. I love bedside nursing. I love working with the patients, but it was like I just missed my family. And back then, the schedule, they were not as flexible, or they didn't have that mindset of work-life balance. So I would do a 12-hour shift, a day off, a 12-hour shift, a day off, a 12-hour shift. So it's like, okay, I'm sleeping or I'm working. So it wasn't, now you can do like, 3 12s and you're off the rest of the week, and it gives you more flexibility for your family. But back then that wasn't something that they did. But anyway, I had just been praying and just saying, okay, God, I need to do something different. I went to school. It took me forever to get done. I need to, I need to work as a nurse, of course, but this is just not working. And my neighbor had just graduated from uh, teaching her teacher's certificate. She graduated from a local college, and she was having an event, a graduation party, and she invited me to come over. And so I went over, and the principal of the school that she had just hired on with was there. And he was talking to me, and he said, asked me what I did. I told him I was a nurse, and he said, we have a nursing position open, our vocational nurse, teach health occupation. You have to be a registered nurse to teach this course, but she's retiring. And I go, what? I said, wow. And he said, you should apply. He said, she already knows who she's going to hire. So he let me know that, this person had been in this position for, I think it was over 20 years, and she already had somebody picked out. And so she was gonna, turn it over to this nurse, a friend of hers. And he said, but I would encourage you to apply. And I said, okay, I will. So I did, and I got the job.
Wow.
And so it was utilizing my nursing skills, utilizing my background with my struggles in education. I love the part of nursing that's educating, our patients. And so I was able to use all of those gifts and talents into my classroom. And so that is how I got into education.
And how long ago did that happen? Are you still doing the teaching thing?
I am. I am.
Wow.
I have been teaching for 26 years.
Oh my gosh. And you
Yes.
know what? You can tell that you love it because you are like beaming with joy. You've got this big smile on your face as you're talking about it. I can tell you love it because there's so much joy coming from you.
I do. It's so rewarding. I like the older kids too. I teach 11th and 12th graders, and people usually, when I tell them that, they're like, "What?" But those are my babies, because I love helping them to really connect with their spark. I really love helping them to take on this world. This world is hard. And
Mhm.
so I'm a soft space for them to land before they jump into the jungle.
Right?
And so, yeah, so that's my grade. And I just, I love when if I'm at the hospital or the doctor's office and I look up and it's like, Miss Brinston, they're my nurse or they're my doctor or they're my, physical therapist, and they'll, So I have hundreds and thousands of healthcare workers out there.
Wow. Wow and wow. And it's
Yeah.
nice to see that there's somebody in there that's really doing some good stuff. You're not
Oh.
you're not part of the system. You're not teaching bleh kind of stuff. You've got some good stuff that you're and there's another key phrase that you use, and it's your experience.
Mm,
And honestly, when it comes down to your own experience and maybe even your own research as well, when it comes down to things like that, nowadays I'm actually of the mind frame of your personal experience, your research, the stuff that you did on your own, and you didn't have to be taught by somebody else. Somebody else didn't regurgitate system information to you.
mm,
I really feel like nowadays that's of a higher value
mm.
than the educational system. It's a way
Yeah.
higher value because there's so much that they don't teach you that you miss out on that when you do learn by your own experience, you get all those missing pieces, which I think is just it's huge.
Yeah. And that's a very good point because I think that going from healthcare into education space, I didn't have any education in education. I mean, no former education experience because I didn't have my undergrad in education. I had it in nursing.
Hmm.
And so when I went back to school, it was after working in education for about 4 years. I went back and got my master's degree, but it was more so my master's in education administration,
Hmm.
so that I could be a leader in this industry. So, but never really a former teaching uh, education. But like you said, I use my life, and I don't want to take anything from my girlfriend, my friend that was my neighbor. She helped me tremendously, because there is a skill to teaching.
Hmm.
But when you bring that skill along with your life's experiences, it definitely add a richer experience for the students as well, for
That's
sure.
amazing. Now there's a couple. So there's another question here that I wrote down. So in your bio, it talks about life coach. What's the
Mhm.
life coach part of what you do?
Yeah. Well, in all the time that I have, I also have a nonprofit. It's called the Nurturing Wellness Group Foundation. And so, how that became about is working with my students in health occupation.
Mm,
I teach a very comprehensive curriculum. So I'm teaching medical terminology. I certify my students to be EKG technicians and basic life support, and we dive really deep into some major concepts that can be difficult for high school students. And so what I found is the type of student that I was, in a rural area when I first started, that I was dealing with is that I was teaching, the students were just like me. They had very low self-esteem,
mm.
but they also had other issues. They had a lot of barriers, homelessness, incarcerated family members. They had learning disabilities, so they had all of these different barriers that I recognized that I couldn't teach them medical terminology, this is a foreign language, because they had their confidence in their self wasn't there. They didn't believe that they could do it. And so I started to recognize that I had to deal with that first before I taught them about the heart and how it works and the physiology of that and systems and all of this. I had to teach them, I had to deal with those barriers that were preventing them from recognizing that they can be successful. And so I created a curriculum that dealt with that first. And what it dealt with was really focusing on them dreaming because I really thought about, well, what was it about me, my life, that really made a difference? And it was the fact that my father placed that dream in me that I could be something other than what I felt that I could be.
Mm,
And so, with the program that I developed for my students, we had to dream, and I had to take away all of those self-limiting beliefs that prevented them from even comprehending something beyond where their current situation was, right? And
right.
so, with that, we had to deal with I had to teach them about their subconscious mind, and I had to teach them about their little voices and what that means to have a negative voice, and what it does it mean to have integrity, and how to problem solve, and how to overcome these barriers that you're buried under, right?
Mm,
And so from that, after I dealt with that with my students, they just took off because we just kind of let go those chains and they recognized that, hey, I can do this. And they just took off and embraced the truth and let go of the lie, right?
mm.
And so I started to really connect or resonate with the fact that, man, if my students needed this, I'm sure that there's other students that need this. And so that's the life coach piece. It's part of the nurturing wellness group. And I have curriculum that I teach, and then I have facilitators that actually help students go through the content, and then they're coached through facilitators to help them overcome these barriers.
That is just amazing. God is doing so many amazing things through you. I hope you really realize that and let it sink in, just the kind of calling that he has on you. Because it's you've got a very unique way of doing stuff, and I love that. There's so much empowerment in what you do. So kind of sort of switching gears, but sort of not, because the title of our episode today is the truth about being grateful. How does that all come into play now with everything that you do, how you empower people and all that, the truth about being grateful? So how does that come into play?
You know, um, I'll go back to my title, or what I've embraced my title to be, as I help people to glance back so that they can move forward. It's very difficult for us as humans to just bulldozer past our past, right? We
Right.
we we just can't. You get through a certain place in your life, and if you don't deal with the things that you've been through, they'll pull you back, right?
Yes.
And so I'll put it to you this way. Once I graduated from nursing school and I was working as a nurse, I still had that secret. I really didn't tell too many people about, my struggles. It was just, my family knew, and um, but it was still my secret. Um, Very embarrassed about what I had been through. So I didn't really deal with it. I just put a band-aid over it, and I achieved the goals that I, put out for myself to achieve. But I never really got over the fact that this was my secret. So I was at church teaching Sunday school, and one of the little girls was reading, we were going around and we were reading the Bible, and it came to her, and she ran out the room. And I was like, what's going on? So I ran out and followed her. And I said, what's going on? And she says, well, I'm a slow reader. And of course, it took me a little coercion to kind of get that out of her, but she finally admitted that she was a slow reader. And I shared with her that I was a slow reader, and that, I shared my story with her. And that was the first time that I really let the cat out the bag, right, to this little girl, that was in my Sunday school class. And her name is Robin Wilson.
Hmm.
And I'll say she's a speaker now. She's a teacher. She's absolutely amazing. And it's so funny because she shares this story with her testimony as well. But I told her, I said, you know, you were the first person who I shared my story with. And from that moment, um, I stopped being embarrassed with sharing my story. And that's how I would share with my students in the classroom because I had never told them, right?
Hmm.
And it was after that I had the courage to share my story. And so, with me helping these young people and really connecting with them, they never really knew why I was so understanding. And so, that I could understand what they were going through is because I went through the same thing. But after that, I started sharing my story. And so, sharing my story and speaking and talking to young people and seeing them transition. And so I'm grateful, just to answer your question, things happen in our lives for a reason.
Yes.
And I never knew how profound that one little girl running out of my class and me being brave enough to share it with a little girl, that would be the birth of me having such an impact on so many young people.
That is amazing. You know, I just caught just like a little mini vision as you were like talking about running after that little girl. So the shepherd, so in the Bible, the shepherd that leaves the flock of 99 people, you left your classroom and all those kids in there to go after the one.
Amen.
You know,
Amen.
it's just like that was the vision that just popped in my head. Wait, she left her classroom, she left all those kids in there alone to go after the one. That's awesome. And it shows your heart.
Amen. Yeah, absolutely. And they always, you hear that your struggle is your blessing,
Mhm.
and that was my struggle. I never ever as a young girl would have ever guessed that I would be telling people that I was struggling, because it was something that I tried to keep secret for so long. But that became my superpower, the fact that the Lord took me through that so that I could be right here at this time making an impact in youth and young people's lives.
Mm. So amazing. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, you know what? There's the people that look back and allow their past struggles or failures to hold them back throughout life. And then there's the looking back to be empowered by what you see,
Mm,
you know, to learn, to grow by, you know, those experiences. And, you know, it's just, what's the phrase that I want to use? So, there it is. Failure actually is not the opposite of success, as many people believe. It's
mm,
not. Because when you take that and you use it and you grow from it, you get better from it, you get stronger from it, that's not a failure.
mm,
Failure is not the opposite of success. We actually need that to happen in
mm,
order to grow. It's often, you know, it's like I was talking to one of my clients the other day about that through their journey, you know, because me as a weight loss coach, you know, I'm having to constantly remind people over and over again, you're human, you're not perfect. You're gonna fall off the horse in your journey. You're gonna have those weak moments. You're gonna have these times in your walk for you know better health to your weight loss goal. You're gonna have those times. What gets to happen now is you get to embrace those times. You get to learn from those times. You get to grow from those times. Gone are the days where you throw in the towel and go, this week is shot. I'll just start again next week. Gone are the days when you're just like, man, this whole month. And wow, look at my schedule. I'm just going to start again in February. You know,
mm,
gone are those days. No, you get to embrace those moments and you get to grow and learn because as I teach every one of my clients that I have, that is what's going to produce the lasting
mm,
and permanent changes in your life. That's what gets to happen. And so, in that, I mean, I love that you help them to take stuff from their past, glean from it, and move forward from that
Right.
and
You
learn.
know, you were making a point, a great point. There's having someone like you, having a coach
Mm.
to help them to transition is the difference, you know, because it's really easy to stay stuck in your pity party, right? It's really easy to stay stuck in that glance back. I think about, if my father wouldn't have said that to me, if he would not have transformed my thinking and gave me another opportunity other than what I saw possible for myself, I would still probably be that low self-esteem, woman who thought that she was stupid and didn't
Mm.
think, the world didn't have anything for her. And so his intervening transformed my life. And that's why I value coaches so much. I value people like you who are there to help people to get over their failures and help them to remind them that you can grow from it, and that's what my life coaching is for through the Nurturing Wellness Group. I help young people to look at it as I'm glancing back because I have somewhere else to go.
Yeah.
But sometimes if we can't see that, and sometimes we can't see that by ourselves, we need someone like a coach, like yourself, or a mentor, or a counselor, or some type of support. The sad thing is helping people to realize that it's okay to ask for help.
Oh,
It's okay
heck
to
yeah.
ask for help, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's so many times that even when we know we should ask for help, what happens is we listen to the chatterbox that's in the back of our head. Oh, that person's going to be very disappointed with this situation. That person, and we tell ourselves lies and we create this language of what that person's going to think or whatever. And then, when you do finally have that breakthrough moment and you finally do go, you get like you get surprised to all get out because the person is not reacting the way you envisioned that they would react. And
Yeah.
that's the crazy part about it. Um, and the other thing though that I wanted to mention here too is okay, so it's actually so you've got the top of sports players. They're at the top of their game, right? These people, they know what they're doing. They've been at it for years. It's their career. They're good. They've got great stats. I'm talking the top of the people, right?
Mhm.
You would think that they have arrived and that they're good. And they don't need anybody along their side pushing them along. They've arrived. No, not necessarily. Those same people have coaches there to push them further to the next step. There never really is an arriving. It's always a growing process. So, and in that explaining that, I also wanted to share this is there's a framework that I have that actually I was talking to one of my clients about the other day. It's like your journey. I mean, and you can apply this to life too, but in this case, it's a client who's, losing, wants to lose weight and everything else. So the weight loss journey, and I was speaking to her about the weight loss journey, how there's a lot of people I think that subconsciously they have this vision that the journey is a linear path. And in reality, you've got your ups and downs. You've got your wins and then you've got your weak moments. You've got your wins. And this is what's going on. Now, hang on there for a second. Here's what it feels like all over the place. Okay. That's the journey. Now, the actual reality of what's happening, though, in your journey. So, yeah, you've got this, but here's what's actually happening. So, watch my finger. You are climbing up a mountain and you're on a hiking trail. And unless you're doing switchbacks, You're slowly but surely making your way to the top of the mountain. But that's a long ways, and it's going to feel like a long ways sometimes. It's going to feel like, oh, when am I going to reach the top? Right? But in reality, even when the scale's not moving, even when things are going crazy and you just don't think there's anything happening, there still is. There's the internal change that's happening. Just because you may not be able to see it externally, the internal changes happen. So it's the same with life and the circumstances that life throws at you. As you grow through those, you are making your way to the top. And it doesn't always feel that way. In fact, sometimes you're stalled out and it's just like, am I ever going to move from this point? What the heck's going on? But remember, just because you don't see the change and the
Mm,
improvement, and you can't really see the pathway up to the top of the mountain, you're getting there. You just got to
mm,
keep going and just never give up but embrace every circumstance. I mean, it's just I just thought I would share that because I thought it was like a real powerful little framework example, because I actually
mm,
love the part in there where I mention this is what it feels like. And I literally, for the framework that I have, I literally just took the sketch thing and I went
uh-huh.
like this. So I didn't find something and then just copy and paste it. I just and it looks ridiculous and it looks hilarious, but that that's the reality of life. You know, this is
Mm.
what it's going to feel like. But here's what's actually going on. Here's what's actually happening.
I love that so much. You have no idea how much I needed to hear that right now. So thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome.
Because I resonated with this. It's like, so when you said it, I'm like, wait a minute, you're in my head right now. But when you think about there's areas in my life that it's like I got it, but there's also areas in my life it's like, And so, but one of the things that you made me think about that when you slow that down and you saw the progression of movement, and this is something that I teach my students is in the people that I work with through my nonprofit, is you have to be in action. As soon as you stop being in action, you either fall down the hill or you get back into this. And so, but you have to be in action. And what does action look like? And it could be something as small as, you know, uh, setting weekly goals and actually achieving them, from making your bed to drinking your water. And that is action, is bringing momentum. And the more momentum you get, the further you'll go. And so that's what a coach does. That's what people like you and I do. We bring that coaching. One of the things I did want to mention, one that a very powerful um, lesson that I think that really helps young people when I'm trying to help them to transition is everybody, this is my statement, everybody wants to look good and avoid looking bad. Everybody. And
Mm.
I'll ask the question either, in my classroom or when I'm working within my nonprofit, and I'll ask the question, how many of you guys want to look good and avoid looking bad? Like everybody. I'm
Everyone.
like, okay, everybody. So it's like, okay, so if everybody wants to look good and avoid looking bad, who are we trying to impress? Everybody's trying to impress somebody. Everybody's going through something and don't want everybody to know about it. And so I think sometimes we struggle with achieving or going for our dreams is because we feel like we're the only one that's trying to do it and we're the only one that's struggling. And everybody is struggling.
Mm.
Everybody. And that was my issue. I thought I was the only one. Poor me. Nobody's struggling like me. Nobody knows that, how hard this is. Nobody knows. But when I really realized that, wait a minute, everybody wants to
Yeah.
look good and avoid looking bad. It kind of takes away some of that and
It
so
does, and that kind of reminded me of something else, and I just wrote it down so I don't forget. But and then after I talk about this, I kind of want to transition into your book as we begin to wrap up because that's something else that we have not talked about, and it's behind you. I see it. Um, but I think also during those times of, where we had these struggles that we're dealing with, there's so on the Christian side of it, there's a temptation to go into the thoughts of, does Jesus really identify with this particular situation in my life? Did he actually go through that? Does he actually really know? And I know this because I've had those thoughts in the back of my head from time to time. But
Mm,
does Jesus really relate to this? I mean, I know he became human and he experienced the human life, but does he really identify with this? And
mm,
we rationalize it like in the sense of, I don't I think that Jesus had a touch of this, but I don't think he really may know what actually this is actually like because of what it's like for me.
mm,
So I mean, I I know that that's a temptation. The fact of the matter is well, no, he's 100% God, and of course he knows, and he felt all the temptations of all the things. But listen to the language that I use. That did God really? Where else does that sound familiar?
mm,
Does Jesus really know? Did God really say? Genesis chapter 3, the fall of Adam and Eve. That's how the enemy did it. He takes the words and he just ever so slightly twists it to cause you to doubt and to cause you to move in the direction that he wants. And so that's how it's done. But we often do that to ourselves.
mm. Absolutely. Absolutely. We have, I think when I really resonated with the fact that, you know, we have two enemies. Well, we have three. We have the world,
Mm,
we have Satan, and we
mm,
have ourselves.
wow. Okay. Yes.
What I'm saying? It's like, when when I used to think that it was just the devil, it was, I was like, it's I could take away the urgency of impacting my actions. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh,
Right.
the devil is doing this. I don't have to do anything. I'm for me, but the devil is the only one that's against me. But when I started really embracing that, my flesh, the world, and the devil plays a very pivotal part in dragging me down that alley that I don't want to go.
Mm,
Um, when I embrace that as a reality, I stopped working with the devil. I stopped being on his side and recognizing that, okay, I need to get my flesh under control, right? I need to be on God's side and recognize that I have this desire in me to be bad, to do bad,
yes.
to isolate myself. I'm playing along with the tricks of Satan. I'm isolating myself. I'm having this secret. I don't want anybody to know because I don't want anybody to help me. You know, you know, I'm in this by myself, but when I recognize that, hey, I'm part of this plan to push me away from what God wants. I'm part of the issue. And, recognizing that, okay, part of my issue is being isolated,
Mm,
making it my secret, recognizing that, I'm the only one that want to look good and avoid looking bad, and I think that played a big role in me recognizing that, okay, even me, there's nothing, I can't think of the scripture, there's nothing good in me, even me, so, and really leaning on God because He is the only perfect being in this whole scenario, right? I can only trust Him
yep.
and His word. And so, yeah, absolutely. I resonate with that so much.
And you know what? So that statement, there is no good in me, that's not true. Not anymore.
Mm,
Because God
right.
has
That's
renewed
the
you
Lord, the Holy
inside.
Spirit. Amen. Amen.
Right, right.
Mhm.
So yeah, even be careful with that because the truth is God, He has made you new. He's given you a new heart, and the Holy Spirit lives inside of you. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't still struggle with our flesh. I'm not definitely not saying that, but I'm saying no, you have changed. So yeah.
Amen.
Um, and I wrote that down because what you said about we have three enemies, because I never really thought of it that way. It's so true though. I usually think of it, oh, my enemy, the devil. And I just kind of leave
Mhm.
it like that. And that was just a good reminder. No, the world, my flesh is my enemy, and the devil. And I was like, oh yeah. So I wrote that down because actually I'm probably going to put put a concept or something like that in my boot camp as well, because this is also powerful. Clients need to know that, look, the world's going to tell you you need to eat a certain way. The world's going to tell you you need to look a certain way. The world's going to tell. So that's enemy. Your flesh, your
Mhm.
weakness, obviously. The devil's going to come in and deceive you, just like he's been doing for years, around food and different things like that. So that applies, and that's so powerful. So thank you for giving me that little gem. Um, I had to write it down because I'm like, ooh, I need to use that. I've got to write it down. Um, but anyhow, now as we transition, can you believe we've almost been talking for 50 minutes?
No,
Yeah,
really.
wow. Time went by just like that. So as we're transitioning to kind of wrap things up, I want you to share about your book. Yeah, right. I just looked at my stopwatch that I put up here on my other screen, and I'm like, what? Where did it
I
go?
can't believe that. Wow, I don't feel okay. Well, you're so good to talk to, so I'm sure your client enjoy, enjoy you coaching them.
Woohoo! So let's transition into your book. I want to give you some time to talk about your book, the book that's behind you there, and what's in it, and all the cool like little gems and gold that's in that book. Why would people want to get that book? So why don't you unload that for a little bit there?
Wow, yeah, absolutely. I wrote a book. It's called Grateful for the Journey, Surviving COVID-19. And so this is my book. Very proud of my book. I didn't really write it for it to be a book, so I'll start out by saying this. I wrote it, I was writing because my counselor told me I needed to write so that I could remember my life.
Mm,
So this was right at the beginning of COVID. This was in March of 2020. And this is when they first started like closing the schools and everything started closing down. And so I
right.
got COVID. I actually started having the same symptoms that everybody was putting on the TV saying, okay, high temperature, chills, muscle pains. And I'm thinking, do I got COVID? And so I talked with one of my business partners who was a paramedic, and I told him, I said, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. And he says, go to the hospital immediately because it's going to get crazy. And so when I went to the hospital, there was a line outside and military tents, and it was just absolutely crazy. But anyway, I ended up getting admitted, and they told my husband to go home, and I didn't see him for a month later. And I was declining while I was in the hospital. I couldn't breathe. My oxygen saturation was like in the 60s. And so normal is like 90, 95, 100. And so
Yeah.
mine were very low. And so I couldn't breathe on my own anymore. And they had to put me on a ventilator. And so I was on the ventilator for almost 2 weeks. And when I came out off the ventilator, I had very sketchy memory. Like I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember that I was married. I didn't remember that I had children. I remembered my mother, and it was it was very scary and very dark. Um, I eventually remembered my husband, but I was going through a lot of like I couldn't remember some people. I didn't remember why what I didn't remember that I was a nurse and why I became a nurse. I looked at my resume and I was confused. I'm like, why am I a nurse? why am I a teacher? Why am I, it's like I couldn't, I had no reference point. So my memory was gone. I had some brain damage and scarring in my lungs. And so my counselor told me to start writing things down. And that's when I started really kind of journaling things that I could remember, like the birth of my children, my marriage. And while I was writing this journal, I was really connecting to different things that I remember that happened to me while I was in the hospital. So, remembering, I had thyroid cancer and remembering my husband and I when we first got married. And I kind of go back to the stories of my life and then I connect them with the experience and the suffering that I went through with COVID.
Mm.
And it's sort of like, that's why I say grateful for the journey because I had an opportunity, a very rare opportunity to experience my life fresh and really embrace the goodness and the blessings and all the things that God has allowed for me to have and to go through. Um, you know, to remember like it what just happened, the being pregnant and, crying when I came home with my child and saying, Lord, help me not to kill this little child. I experienced it like it was today, and as I was journaling, the Lord allowed me to remember things that I had forgotten. And I remembered, the desires that I wanted, and he closed those doors, and the things that I did want, and he opened those doors, and I was experiencing this life in my 50s as if it was happening right now. And I think that's when in the book I talk about just how God orchestrated every aspect of my life. When
Mm.
you look at a puzzle, you don't really you don't really know what it's going to turn out to be until you get the puzzle completed. So I had the rare gift of having my puzzle completed and then going back and look at those little pieces, and so it was very humbling and it was beautiful to be able to experience that that piece, those things that I had lost. And I will tell you, Ken, after COVID, that's when I started doing interviews. I never did interviews.
Mm.
I was always the behind the scenes person in my business. I would try to hire people to do my marketing. I would never have a picture of me or a video of me, um, interviews or anything. But after
Ooh, look
COVID,
at you now.
yeah, it's like I'm doing stuff like this. I never would have done that. I'm sort of, like I said, I'm in the classroom with my students and I'm working behind the scenes consulting, but to be out front, to be on an interview with you before COVID, that would have never happened.
Mm.
And through that experience of going through COVID and, God really helping me to remember what he brought me through, um, has allowed me to really open up even more.
That is
Mhm.
that is a touching, amazing story. Like, wow. Everything that the opportunity to relive all that and probably more so a fuller version than what you actually did live. And having that is just, yeah, I can see why that's, grateful for the journey. I
Mhm.
could totally see why,
Mm.
because it's,
We live such guarded lives
we do.
because of the shame, embarrass, trying to be more than we are. And you're right. It was, I didn't think about it like that, Ken, but you're right. It was more fulfilling than I actually lived because I allowed myself to experience without barriers.
Mm, yes.
So
And that
awesome.
that that was huge. And then the other thing, so I wrote this down so I wouldn't forget it too. I'll have different things pop in my head. If I don't write it down, it's gone. Um, being in front of the camera, that was another big thing. I'll share a quick story with you about me with that. So in the very beginning of me launching my brand and company, Mastery Weight loss the way it's supposed to be is my slogan. Um, my founding mentor, it took him the longest time to convince me to finally get in front of the camera. First thing he told me is like, your Facebook account, that's no longer your personal account. That's now your business account. That was enough for me to kind of get over because I was just like, no, well, I like my Facebook account. Now he wants me to get in front of the camera on Facebook. And that had always been something that I was very careful of. I didn't like people knowing my life. I didn't like, all of that stuff. Plus, there were people in my family. I didn't want them knowing what I was doing. Long, long story behind all that. But yeah, he it was like pulling tooth and nail trying to get me in front of the camera. He finally did. And I got to tell you, the very beginning stages of all that, I used to edit the crap out of videos. Every nook and cranny, it had to look perfect. And I would often spend way too much time on editing behind the scenes before I finally put out a video, put it to the video. That's who I was. Now look at me now. I love being in front of the camera. This is what I do. I mean, so I think it's like everything in the whole life journey. You've got to start somewhere. You've got to take that first step. And I love the way my coach always puts this. My coach Francine, just do it messy. She's got this concept out there of doing it messy. And I love that because it takes away the perfection of it. And it just kind of puts in such a comfortability about it. Not that it's not challenging and hard in the beginning to learn something new, but once you do and you move forward with it, you start to become an expert with it. And I learned along the way, yeah, it's not good to say so many times, but I learned that if I do, it's okay to let some of those come through. I don't need to edit out every little thing. So it's just it's crazy. So as we wrap up here, how can people connect with you? How can people actually, before we do that, what are let's say let's say three. What are three biggest things that you would like to tell the audience today you before we wrap this up and we move on to how people can connect with you? What are three empowering things that you can give to people that are listening? And if you've got more than three, go for it. But I'm just giving three to make it simple.
Yeah, I'll keep in that three rim. I think the number one thing is to get to know the Lord.
Hmm.
Life is hard. I can't even imagine doing life without God in my life. We think we know everything. It's amazing to be connected with a God who knows everything.
Amen to
And
that.
and
Mm.
so I would encourage you to check them out. The second thing I would say is to dream.
Oh,
Allow yourself to dream with no limitations. No, don't stop yourself. Sometimes we can like, that's too much. That's a little bit, you know, out of the stretch. Stretch yourself and just dream. You're let yourself go and just and dream. And the third thing I would say is to get a coach. Get
mm.
someone who you can connect with and that can support you. I think of being a coach. A coach is someone who, I love your example, this mess. They take this mess and they just ease it out. right? They just kind of sort it out for you. And it's like things that you think that's going to take you forever. They've already been through it and they can help you. I have a coach in every aspect of my life, for my health and wellness, for my marriage. I had a mentor with my when I raised my boys. Just every aspect of my life. I get support, and so I would encourage you to get a coach.
100%. I was wondering, so when you reached the second one, I was just like, I wonder if her third one's gonna be a coach. And lo and behold, there it was. It like popped in my head and you did it. And I was like, yes, that's the third one. A coach, you guys. Even the top of the top, the best, they all have coaches. And a lot of times they have more than one coach.
Mhm.
They've got a team of coaches. And so, yes, you guys, all of that. And Terry did mention this as the number one, explore the Lord. I'm going to take it a step further. Look, hey, what I do, my program, my brand is unapologetically faith based. I am a Christian. Christianity is not a religion, you guys. Christianity is a relationship with Christ. There is a big difference.
Mhm.
Some people may want to, feel better calling it a religion just as an excuse to not dive into it. Oh, that's just another religion. That's just another way of man's way of controlling people. Not at all. Christianity is actually the one belief system that provides so much grace and so much freedom. It's not about working your way to heaven because you can't do it. It's about recognizing that you have a sinner, that you are a sinner, that you have fallen short of a holy God. It's about recognizing the fact that you can't do it on your own and then recognizing who can help you, and that's Christ, and who can forgive you, and who can restore you, and who can um, walk with you through that journey. Doesn't mean the journey is going to be easy. I'm going to get that straightforward and clear right now because I even think some people become a Christian because they think life's going to become easier. Uh-uh. If anything, you've just opened up the floodgates for attacks on yourself. I'm going to be bluntly honest. But the thing of it is Christ has overcome that. He has overcome death. The grave is still empty. That stone has been rolled away and has been for thousands of years. He is seated at the right hand of God right now because of the fact he didn't just die for your sins. He rose on the third day, making him the eternal sacrifice for sin. You guys, that is the true Christian message. I just wanted to take a few moments to really lean into that because that is the gospel. You're not going to hear a gospel from me saying, accept Christ or go to hell, because I don't believe that that is the gospel. Um, yes, there is one way, one truth, and one life, John 14:6. No one comes to the Father but through him. So, yes, there is one way. But you need to remember there's grace and freedom through accepting Christ as your Lord and Savior. So if you want to find out more about that, if you have any questions about that, feel free to either reach out to me or Terry. I'm sure she would be more than open of having that kind of a conversation. So I'm gonna just leave that there, and because I just really wanted to lean into that, guys. For anybody listening, basically, that's that's what I believe. That is the God that I believe in. That is a very loving God. That is a very graceful, merciful God, a God that's provided a way. And so, anyhow, in wrapping up, Terry, how can people connect with you?
Absolutely. I have two ways. I have several ways, but you can reach out to me at terribrinston.com. That is my website that you'll learn about my speaking. I coach youth and also parents. I work with parents to help them to help their young people. So you can learn everything about me at that site, terribrinston.com. Also, you can reach out to me for my nonprofit, which is the Nurturing Wellness Group Foundation.org, Nurturing Wellness Group Foundation.org. And I would love to speak with you guys and learn how I can support you either if you're working with, I work with, provide programming for young people, high school and young adults who are failure to thrive. I coach parents and also work with schools. So reach out to me and see how we can work together.
Wow. Almost in that field, I almost want to say, not quite, but I almost want to say you're like jack of all trades. Yeah, that's the phrase. It's like you've got a lot underneath your belt there.
But focuses on youth.
Yeah,
My core is the children. Now, I do a lot with them, but my love, the God has given me such a heart to serve young people. So
I love
that's
that.
my core.
I love that. How can people get your book as well?
Yeah, I'm on Amazon. Um, uh, you can go straight to, and that's what our go-to is Amazon, or you
Amazon.
can go to my website. I also have it on audiobook. It's a really good read. Been getting some really good reviews on it. I've been working on a course for women. And so helping women to write their own stories. So I'm excited about that. I get bored really quick, obviously. So I'm always doing something. But I will say that I have a village of people that I work with. But anyway, you can get my book on Amazon or you can go to terribrinston.com to see my book,
That's
access it.
amazing. That's amazing. You guys, the links to connect with her and even the link to get her book, which I will look that up and see if I can pop that into the description below this video. So, all of these, so her bio, her links to connect with her, and to get her book, they're all going to be in the description below. And so reach out to Terri. You guys, this this woman, she has got so much empowering to offer you. There's so much valuable experience that she has, not just the education, the real lifetime hands-on experience that is crucial. That in a lot of ways, there's a lot of coaches out there that have been educated coaches, but have very little actual hands-on experience with it. And Terri's not one of those. Terri's is one is what she does is because of her hands-on experience, and a lot of it is in there. And there's a lot of heart, there's a lot of love in there. I'm sure it was very clear as she talked about her story today because there's a lot of passion there as well. So anyhow, reach out to Terri, connect with her, get her book. And good on you. You got the audio book out there because I love audiobooks. You know, if I really want to devour a book, audiobook is the way to go because I can also listen to it at speed and a half. And it kind of even cuts down the time. So that's also like another life hack. But yeah, get the book, audio or the regular traditional book, whatever is your fancy there. And in wrapping up, you guys, I have some announcements really quick. So I'm sure you heard me allude to this. You know, I am a weight loss coach. I've lost 62 and a half pounds and I've been able to keep it off for 6+ years now, all without a diet and having that be sustainable. And that is exactly what I empower my clients to do. So right now I'm actually giving away my 3 secrets to help you finally break those sugar addictions, those hunger issues, those snacking issues, lose that last 20 or 30 pounds and keep it off, even the emotional eating issues. With 3 one-on-one sessions with me, you will be equipped with an empowered mindset shift. And number two, you will be equipped to finally see past all of the industry lies and avoid the common pitfalls in this food and health industry. And number three, you will be equipped to see past the marketing deceptions that this industry uses. Look, guys, they put it all over their packages. They make you think what you're buying is healthy. They'll tell you it's only 140 calories. It's got a great source of fiber, like all of this. And you're busy. I get it. You're in the store. You don't have time to like really, mess around. You want to get in there and get out. I mean, I know I do. That's the first thing that I want to do in this store. Get out of there. Don't be in front of me with a grocery start moving with a grocery cart moving like a snail. Get out of my way because I want to get out. But anyhow, all of that, I show you I equip you to see past all of that and to stand on an empowered ground after working with me for just 3 sessions. I have shown my boot camp to a couple powerhouse coaches, and one of them said, her name is Daniela. One of them said that my boot camp was that she would expect to pay about $1,000 for it. I had another person that told me that my boot camp is worth $1,500 at least. Well, right now everything is packaged up into a nice little bundle for only $97. You've got nothing to lose but those extra pounds. You've got everything to gain in a good way. My boot camp is an educational boot camp. And the other thing I just want to make very, very clear, my boot camp is not about creating deprivation. My boot camp is not about creating frustration or stress around around food. My boot camp is about empowering you. It is about giving you more freedom than what you had before with your food choices. And I will also say, if you're somebody listening to this and maybe you're already on a journey, this is going to supercharge that journey. I can guarantee you that. So, anyhow, the link to join my boot camp for only $97 is in the description below. I don't know how long I'm going to keep it there. Before the holiday seasons, I was going for boot camp was going for $75. Now it's 97. I would jump in now before I raise that again. So, anyhow, with that, and there's also a link in the description below for you to connect with me. There's many ways you can connect with me. So, I do have another main YouTube channel besides this one that this video is on, which is all my main content that I put out. So, you can also subscribe there. There's also a link to get to that channel as well. So, as we are wrapping up, Terri, do you have any last minute thoughts?
I just want to thank everybody. Thank you, Ken, for having me again. I feel like I won the lottery. I've been with you for the last couple of weeks on your different shows. So thank you so much. I hope we can continue to work together and stay in touch. Absolutely. Great, great,
Absolutely.
great person.
Yeah, you know what? It's like when I think I originally sought after you for expert interviews. That was the original. And then I got on the Zoom call with you. You told me your story, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, no, she needs to be on my other show too." Um, so when I find a powerhouse like yourself, you are a thought leader and expert in your field. I want that story to be told and I want it to be shared. So, yeah, from the bottom of my heart, it's been a pleasure. You're welcome. All right, guys. So that is it for today's episode. Have a great rest of your day or evening, depending on where you are in the world and what time of day you're listening. I will catch up with you on the very next episode. Talk to you guys later.